Another beautiful day in Genoa. I'd like to welcome you all here. Before we start, there are a few introductions that I would like to start with. The Board of Trustees met this morning, and we have some of our trustees here, and I'd like to at least introduce them to you at this time. Starting with Hans Pescher. Hans is the Genoa Town Supervisor. He's a member of our trustees. Hans, would you stand, please? Thank you. Al Edwards, local businessman and individual who checks constantly on our students to make sure they're performing. Al, would you please stand? Agnes Cornwell. She'd make sure her son behaves. Douglas Davenport, Vice Chairman of our Board of Trustees. Connie Lewis had to leave. She had another appointment. She thought she'd be able to stay till we got started, but we couldn't get James here, so she had to leave. But I did want to introduce those people, and I will introduce our speakers as we go along today. We will start with our chairman of the Board of Trustees, the gentleman who really makes this all possible for everyone, Clifford Bish. Clifford?
Greetings to the 1991 graduates. Mark Goldowitz, Ray Hart, Jim Houlihan, and Joe Liebman. I extend warm greetings on behalf of the trustees, the faculty, and the administration. Today, as we celebrate your successful completion of your 2 years of academic studies and work, I would like you to know how pleased we are for you. We share the happiness of your families and friends in your accomplishments marked by this occasion. We are very proud of you. While the past 2 years have been filled with technical information, our primary goal has been to hone your abilities to think and to learn. In the competitive world that lies before you, you will be called upon to give the utmost of your creativity and craftsmanship. How well we have done our job will be evaluated by the future. I am confident that your Genoa education will stand you in good stead and that it will bring you satisfaction in your professional lives. Your graduation today places you at the forefront of a long line of Genoese, all of whom we are sure will make distinguished contributions to our society. We wish you long lives full of those most elusive qualities, happiness and contentment. Thank you for all you have contributed to Genoa. Your presence over the past 2 years have been greatly enriched our lives. I look forward to your continued association with all that is Genoa. And once again, congratulations on everything you have achieved. May you have continued success and rich fulfillment in the many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Clifford. Next, we have a class response. I had asked this year's graduating class to pick an individual to say a few words on behalf of the class. And Joel Liebman is the graduate that will be doing that today. Now, over the course of this past week, he has told me it's going to be an hour-and-a-half speech. Every time he goes by my office, he gives me another little tidbit. So I'm kind of looking forward to what Joel has to say. I'm a little concerned about the hour-and-a-half part, but Joel, the stage is yours.
To start, I wanted to talk a little bit about the process we went through here in Genoa. It's obviously been a long 2 years that went fast. I can remember day one sitting on the front porch talking about who we are and where we came from, why we're here. And it was kind of interesting sitting there again and kind of reflecting back. I think most of us came to school with little or no experience, which really helps out the fact that here at Genoa we start with the basics. One of the first things we do is we buy all our hand tools. And I guess most of us try to buy probably the best tools we can find, which, you know, they're quite available. But I'd say they come pretty much defective and crummy. So our first 3 weeks, we tune our tools, which is a long process. We all want to get busy woodworking, but we need these tools to do the work. So we flatten our planes. We flatten every part of the plane, and it's a long process. Every tool gets tuned, even screwdrivers, which when I spoke to people about what we did, it just seemed like a joke to them that all we do to even tune up a screwdriver, but it's really important. So we had our planes working fine, and we're given a board project. Seemed pretty simple, a chunk of wood, let's flatten it with our master planes that we have here, and flatten it and square it. But I would say probably a week and a half passed by, and working almost full time on these pieces of wood, not too big, and they still weren't flat. So, but excellent experience in preparation for things to come. Along with this, we're working with drafting, drawing, metalworking, design, and furniture art history. I say furniture art history because we did receive a good background in art history too, which at Genoa we know the importance of studying the other arts. Then we get into our hand tool project, something I think most of us wouldn't choose to do unless in some shops we had no machinery. But the hand tool project was a great experience, great satisfaction when you're done knowing that this piece of furniture was made completely by hand. None of these magnificent power tools were used to do a process in, say, 5 minutes that would take us a day or two. In the hand tool project, we learned joinery skills such as mortise and tenon joints. We moved on to dovetailing. I think most of us enjoy dovetails, and once you learn a little bit about woodworking, it's a mark of quality to see these nice hand-cut dovetails. Along with this, we're down in the metal shop, learning many kinds of welding. I wasn't even sure how many kinds we learned because there's many ways of joining the metal. There's been talk about what is Genoa all about. It's not based around a figure. We're not a Wendell Castle school. We're not a Sam LaRoof. So we don't produce Wendell Castle furniture. It's always been talked that we produce quality, and quality is stressed. We had one teacher quote, look at, I guess, a joint on a piece of my furniture that wasn't done quite as beautiful as it could be, and his comment was, how could you sleep at night? And it hit hard, for someone to say, how could you sleep at night, which I had no problem. But I think it actually sums up sort of a theory here that you are to do your best, and maybe it won't be perfect, but I think you can sleep at night knowing you did your best. I think probably along with the skills, the most important thing we come out of here with is the art of problem solving. In the beginning, everything's a question, and that's what the teachers are here for, ask away, which I asked quite a bit. But over the 2 years, I really feel that we've learned quite a bit of problem solving. Everything we make is something new, even new for the teachers, so they're always testing their skills. But I feel for the future, we'll be making pieces that we've never done before, maybe no one has done before, and we'll have the skills to figure out what has to be done and how to do it. One of the nice things about Genoa is the community, the teachers, the students. It helps with problem solving, bouncing ideas off other people, and helping other people in their projects. I think it's a tight group we have here. Just about everybody knows everybody in the school and knows what others are doing. I think the future for the graduates and all the students here is open to many options of what can be done. One of the great possibilities is to stay here. We have residency where we could set up our own shop. Somewhat could be it could be a third year of our education with the use of the faculty. So that's one option. We could set up our own shop, which I feel we are quite qualified for. And even in our own shop, there's so many options. We could continue to produce the studio art furniture, a lot that goes on here. I think there's another possibility, what I call like a hometown shop, which is meeting the needs of local people in custom work, working with them to produce a product that the public can easily have access to. Our own shop we can do limited productions, which it's been talked that that's a good option for the future, to think about that if you don't want to get tied into just one-off furniture. The limited production I think could work out. And then there's always custom cabinets, which I almost put on the bottom of the list because people say, well, you come to Genoa to do woodworking, metalworking, and some people say carpentry. Well, you have to correct them right there. And some people say cabinet making, and we try to correct them there too, that it's not strictly cabinet making. But that's an option as far as a future, and especially here with custom cabinet making. You can always work for others. There's a lot of experience, I think, to be gotten from experiencing other people's processes. There's lots of work in the metalworking field with welding and metal fabricating and the metal furniture. I think the options there are quite wide. And obviously there are many more possibilities of what we could be doing in the future. Teaching crafts, I could just go on and on. Obviously, the furniture making takes long hours and dedication, which I think works fine because there's an enjoyment in this work. I think everybody enjoys it, and that's why they're here. I've spoken to some woodworkers who say they put in 12 to 16 hours a day in their shop. And I think if you were a banker or something, to spend 16 hours at your job, you'd go crazy. But with this, it works out quite well. And that's why I think about this field as a career and a hobby. Some people don't like to hear the word hobby because I feel like it degrades what it's all about. But I think that's where it works fine, that we can work our 9 to 8 hour days and then come back to the shop after dinner and be happy to be there, just as, say, a hobbyist might go down into his basement and tinker after dinner. We just go back to work. The future of the school, I believe, is on a positive path, is continually improving, and we're always working on how to make this place even a better place. I feel there's a need for an institution like this to promote the art of fine furniture making and designing. Obviously, everybody uses furniture and would like to have something special, and a place like this could help meet the needs. I wanted to say thanks to basically everybody. I wanted to say thanks to two people who aren't with us anymore, teaching here, Tim Wells and Jim Hill. Tim Wells, I want to thank for his expertise and his push for excellence. How can you sleep at night? He's the man. Jim Hill gave a real personal approach to us. I'm in a group of 4, so he really could work with us one-on-one and work out our designs. I'd like to thank Mike Clapper for taking over, for always being there for us. He was always a help. Last year when he was, I would say, second man, he was always there. And this year he's really taken control, and I see him really doing an excellent job in the future. Bill Schaefer for his one-on-one approach. He's always willing to take the time. He was always here and would stop what he's doing and spend the hours with you. It could be late at night. Nick, I never could pronounce his last name. Klemensky? Klemensky. As our design teacher and drawing teacher, he brought in diversity. He always had an answer for just about any subject, sort of a master of all trades. If you had glass, leather, something you needed find more about it, you could go to Nick. I'd like to thank Ed Cornwell for his wealth of knowledge, encyclopedia up there in art history class. Pat Bechtold for her dedication, and she was a person, I believe, and I think most people would agree, that she would do anything for you. And I mean, just yesterday she proved it again by moving a piece of my furniture up to the gallery that I was not sure how I was going to get there, and I mean, she was there to do it. I'd like to welcome Susan, our art teacher. I think, again, agree that she's doing an excellent job, and we've really come a long way with her. Toby Dean, Bencham assistant, for his, what I say, a straightforward approach. He always had a simple answer to your problem. Again, these are all welcomes to Barbara in the office, always cheery and happy. Nice to see working here. And a special welcome to John Temple, pulling everything together. Friendly guy. And always interested in what the student had to say, and continue interested. I don't think anyone would worry if they were called to the president's office, principal's office. Let's give good luck to Bob Bailey, his future. He was our temporary design teacher this semester. And a special thanks to master craftsman Mark Gravino, and Jim Nagel. I think that's what makes Genoa so great, is we have our residents, and I personally got a lot out of going to them for another opinion, and there's always another opinion, and I think it's important to get every view before you go ahead and create these pieces. I'd like to thank Helmut Lippenhausen for being here. How long was it? 3 weeks? 6 weeks? Feels like a long time. It's been great seeing you create this fine piece. Another resource. Again, we can always use another resource. I don't think we can have too many here. And I'll miss you at lunchtime. And finally, I'd like to thank Clifford Bish and Douglas Davenport for making this all possible.
Thanks, Joe. That's a nice job. Principal's office. I would like to take just a moment, since Joel has made comment on the faculty, to have the faculty stand and be recognized. Would you please stand, those of you that are able to join us? Helmut Lippenhausen. I've done a number of introductions for Helmut since he's been here. It has been 6 weeks. Those of you who may not know Helmut, he comes with a long list of credentials, and that's normally what I've spent my time on. He's a leading designer maker in Australia. He keeps telling me he was born in Germany, though, so sometimes I ask him, is Germany the thing, or is it Australia? Definitely Australia. He's got great teaching credentials. He's right now a senior lecturer at Swinburne Institute of Technology. He's a person who's deeply involved in the craft. Right now, as you can see from your program, he serves as president of the Australian Crafts Council. But what I want to say a little bit about Helmut is the individual. He came here 6 weeks ago. I really didn't know him, although he had been here before, because we had done a major exhibition at our gallery in Skinny Atlas for him, or with him. He was still an unknown to me because I knew, as you can tell from Joel's comments. Helmut's the type of individual that everyone learns a lot from. And I don't mean just from the craft. He's a combination of things to me. He's a little bit of Monty Python. He's a sage in a lot of ways. He's had a lot of experience and a lot of worldly knowledge. He's the type of person that I found was very, very open to all our students. He spent a lot of time individually, just talking, with the people here and getting very involved in our institute, almost to the price of his peace. That was one of the things that he was doing while he was here, but he gave so much of himself to everyone else that at the last minute he was doing the grind like I've seen everyone else do here. But I just want to say, because we're coming to the conclusion of Helmut's visit this time, he will be back, but this time I want to say in particular thanks. And I've learned a lot, and I feel that I've gained a friend, and I think that you will all feel that way. I'd like to introduce to you, that have not met him yet, Helmut Lukenhaus.
Thank you very much, John, and everybody else. Yes, I concur that I feel I go away so much richer for a number of friendships, but also a new and very special friendship with John. And the thing that makes leaving a pleasure is going home to my family. But the thing that makes it sad is leaving some new friends behind. And the thing that makes it bearable is to know that we'll all come back in the not too distant future. Family and friends can be united, and I won't feel like I'm torn. Now, I better keep my watch where I can see. People who know me know I'm easy to switch on and off. And I know Joel's got a shepherd's crook there waiting for me. If I go a minute over time, I'm going to be dragged off stage right. I've read a number of comments since being here that people have made, that Clifford has made, that other people have made, as to what they suggest Genoa is about, and what places like this are about generally. And of course it begs the question for all of us, for the makers, the doers, and for other people who are involved in the greater family. It begs the question, why do this? Why am I doing this? Why am I here at this minute? And what is the context of all of this in contemporary society? Now, Rousseau, a very long time ago, developed some philosophies about truth in nature, about looking for the truth in form and design and in human endeavour into the natural world. And William Morris, one of the readers of Rousseau, and credited with being a major figure at the beginning of the British arts and crafts movement in the last century, established a big movement which moved all over the world. There was an arts and crafts movement here, as you know better than I, in which this whole aspect of truth to material, truth to process, and its resolution through craftsmanship and through an attitude to craftsmanship. And that's what it's all about, more than anything else, it's about attitude, was realised in a lifestyle. Unfortunately, Morris died having failed to achieve many of his endeavours, and we have to learn from that too. We have to learn from the failures of the past as we do the successes. And that brings us to a fairly romanticised point of view that we all take part in, to varying degrees at varying parts of our lives, which is that the past is better. We feel comfort in that sometimes. We'll feel comfortable looking back at the things we have known, whereas we feel a little threatened and uncomfortable looking forward at the things we cannot yet know. And so we often use the term, I know what I like. But when analysed, what that really means is, I like what I know. It means I am comfortable within the parameters and the rules that I have known all my life. And therefore I feel some difficulty with what is yet to come. In this country there's a phenomenon, again you'll be more familiar with this than I know of it only in the most cursory way, of communities that live with affectations of the past, the Amish and the Mennonite communities. These, I think, are living embodiments of the philosophy that the past was where the truth lay, and the future is too big a challenge, so we'll turn our back on it. Now, some of the aspects of this attitude are valid. Lessons of the past ought not to be forgotten. We have all heard the dictum that those of us who forget the lessons of the past, those of us who forget the mistakes of the past, are apt to repeat those mistakes. And we do need a cultural leaping off point. We need to be able to look back and know where we're coming from. What are our cultural roots? What are the things we're doing? What are their links with what has happened before? We have a better idea of where we are going if we know where we're coming from. However, there are aspects of this philosophy which are also partially invalid and rather strangling. In one sense, there's no future in the past. We have to know what's next. Where are we going next? What is going to happen now? And what can we do about that? And this poses two questions. One, what does this working methodology or career path offer us, that is, for the participants in this sort of work, in the greater crafts and specifically in furniture, studio furniture production? And the other question, and an equally important one, if not more, is what do people doing this sort of thing offer the society they're living and working in? Paul Filmer is a British sociologist who's written a number of books and made a number of studies on the role of crafts in contemporary society. And he outlines, interestingly, 4 main characteristics to post-industrial society, which he claims is the period after the Second World War. And Joel, I think you'll be interested to hear a world-renowned specialist saying pretty much the same sorts of things you just said. First of all, one of the main characteristics of post-industrial society, he said, is the service economy, that is opposite to goods producing. We're all familiar with how the economy in the Western world is changing and how large a factor the service economy is becoming. The second major characteristic is the growth of the white-collar sector, that is clerical, not manual work, and how big a part of our economy that is becoming. The third is that of intellectual technology, management systems, the whole computerized management organizational substructures. And the fourth is the centrality of theoretical knowledge, where theory dominates practice, where in the post-industrial society the theoretical basis has become as important as the doing of and the enacting of that theory. And he claims there are a number of 20th going into 21st century responses to this. And these responses are very pertinent to studio furniture designer makers. And these responses are very similar to the ones that Joel alluded to in his talk. One is the idea of the intrinsic satisfaction of the maker. And this has to be the backbone of contemporary craft, an aspect of which is the studio furniture. The idea that there is pleasure coming from a piece growing under the hand, of a one-to-one relationship between person and object, that has some of that backward-looking thing about trying to reenact a long, long culture of the artisan and the craftsman and the doer, the village smithy, the village shoemaker. There is an aspect to that. There is also a future-looking aspect to it, which is one of how to find a role, a meaningful anchor in a rapidly changing world. We're all looking for those anchors. We turn to a whole range of things for them. And often our working lives, being such a large part of our lives in total, are the major part of where we find those anchors. The second response in the late 20th century is the movement towards batch production. The whole idea of craftspeople as designers and designer makers, where people begin by developing prototypes and working in a contemporary production mode, so that here we see an evolution since the war of from the idea of the traditional craftsman to a role for craftsmen in the future, linking with and not fighting the industrial and the post-industrial world. And in the 60s and 70s, it was very fashionable to see crafts production as a kind of Fahrenheit 451, where a few people were keeping the truth alive in their breast, waiting for the better times to fight against the fast encroaching industrial ugliness. That kind of fight mentality, the idea of craftsmen and producers being a guerrilla movement, has gradually evolved to a stage where now craftspeople are trying to put one foot firmly in the contemporary world, firmly in the world of technology and higher technology, whereas keeping the other still rooted in some substantial values of individualism. The third major response to what has happened in the post-industrial world is the idea of the second career model. This is particular to developed societies such as ours. These are sometimes theory-based and sometimes practice-based. The idea that in a rapidly changing world, people need to change direction sometimes. It is no longer true, and we know that in the way our education systems are forming and growing, that people decide at the age of 16 or 17 or 18 what they will do for the whole rest of their lives. The time people now are sometimes training and retraining once, twice, 3 times in their lives, because it is the nature of contemporary society that it is changing so quickly that we all need to be able to change with it at times. Now, as I said, Paul Filmer's prognosis seems to fit most of, if not all, students at Genoa. I was thinking through individuals, thinking almost everybody fits into one of these responses. Certainly all the poor people today, I believe, fit into one of these responses. Genoa seems to me to be a kind of crossroad. This is where people have developed, at least for a time, if not for a lifetime, a type of family structure. And this plays 2 aspects, one against the other, that work together. It's like a paradox. In one sense, there is support and acceptance, and the other, support and acceptance, only comes about if it's hand in hand with responsibility and commitment. That's something we all learn as we grow up, that to be supported and to be accepted, we need to set it in train by supporting and accepting others. And like a family, Genoa has its family arguments. And it has its family arguments over the dinner table. But I think, looking from the outside in, that like a good family, it weathers those arguments because the substantial bonds are proving to be stronger than the differences. And I think that parallel is very important. Thomas Hobbes wrote in his book, Crafts, A Crooked Wisdom, that crafts have never stayed within the mainstream of thought in any period, that they always walk alongside of that mainstream. And this builds again this whole picture of designer makers establishing a valid role for themselves within a post-industrial society as a sort of a doppelganger, where the individual designer maker becomes a kind of very intense R&D, research and development unit, producing one-off or limited batch production, or sometimes even feeding into the bigger picture. More and more designer makers and craftspeople are working with architects and designers and industry. It is better developed in Europe than it is in Anglo-Saxon countries such as America and Australia, where we do tend to alienate the various forms of endeavour, the arts from the sciences and the sciences from banking. We consider them all different worlds, and the worlds don't know each other. There are cultures, there are positive role models where that's not the case. In Germany they know to blend the 3, and it's called, the big 3 are called Kunst, Wissenschaft und Technik, art, knowledge and technology. And they see those 3 as being parts of a whole and not alienated as we tend to sometimes. So this doppelganger role of designer makers is, I think, one of the important manifestations of why this sort of thing has a role in the future and where we're going with it. Where there are models that fit in with the way the world is going, the world economy is going, the way discrete production facilities are growing again, out of the idea that we all had 20 years ago that everything was going to be mass-produced. And everything that wasn't mass-produced was some kind of Amish of the arts. We have now matured to a point where we realise computers, far from forcing us to rush headlong towards mass production, which was part of the genesis of their development, are actually enabling us now to make limited, discrete production runs of objects, because the whole industrial infrastructure can turn itself around very quickly now. And so we no longer need to swamp the whole world with the same product or the same building or the same piece of furniture. And against that kind of background, individual designer makers have such a large part to play. I'd like to join Clifford and John, and I'm sure everyone else here, in wishing our graduates today fulfilment, pleasure, love, humour, and not least patience, as they move along the next section of their particular journeys. Thank you.
Thank you, Helmut. In a way, we're starting a tradition going right on from Helmut, and that is with his piece. Because it was so much a part of our everyday activities over the past 6 weeks, what we've decided to do is use that henceforth as part of our graduation exercise. We've put the diplomas in that, and we plan on having that as part of our little ceremony, if you will, from now on.
Sorry, John, it's just worth saying perhaps it's for everyone to interpret for themselves whether it's a winged messenger from hell or heaven.
Or Clifford's gravy bowl.
I had thought of calling it that, yes.
Would the graduates or candidates for graduation please rise? As I call your name, please come forward. Matthew Goldowitz. Ray Hart. James Holohan. And Joel Liebman. The graduates may be seated. Starting to sound like a principal, I guess. Or a judge. We've asked Ed Cornwell to say a few words. Will he be few?
Very few.
Very few. Okay, we've asked him to deliver a special message to the graduates today. As you have already heard, Edward is an art historian, a historian in general, a gentleman who has had much notoriety in our area, in our sphere, and a great supporter of the Institute. Ed Cornwell.
John, does that mean I'm notorious? Oh.
That too.
First of all, for those of you that don't know what art and furniture history is all about, it's intended to drive new students out of their minds very slowly. And my favorite, of course, I like to talk to the students, like Joel, constantly saying, Edward, will you please stop sewing ceramics? I'm tired of them. This is furniture we're interested in. So I subject them to everything from paintings and costume and food and ceramics and glass. Then I expect them to sort that all out when test time comes. They're presented with just some furniture. Now we have Jim with his sparkle of Irish humor in his eyes. And today when I looked at him valiantly struggling with his chair, with his wife trying to help him, as he directed her very firmly, no dear, not that way, tighter, come on, through the screwdriver. Joel is my Old Testament prophet. He's always very wise. When he isn't complaining about ceramics, he's diligently working and produces little things like a beautifully formed cabriole leg that awed me completely. No other legs, just one cabriole leg. I have hopes though, Joel, that something will come of that. Matthew is always terribly solemn and intently gazing at one of his creations, which I will sit on and say, it won't hold anyone, Matthew. The back's too high, the pad's too small, and my fanny overlaps all the way around. He's very patient with me, and he listens to all of this, and I think he puts up with his wife, Pat, too, who also helps him with some of these problems. I don't know whether Pat and I have similar bottoms, but I certainly don't so. Now, Ray worries me. Why? Because Ray is so extremely patient, and he's so old. Almost as old as I am. And when you walk into a room, you go, oh my God, a contemporary. What can I possibly offer a contemporary? Well, from his contributions in class and his valiant struggle to finish all his projects, which I've observed. You see, I usually see things in a drawing form, and then I appear when they're miraculously completed, and I go, isn't that wonderful? I don't see them suffer through all of this, as their other teachers do, which is kind of nice. I come in and go, gee, that's great, and vanish again for a while. But they're also wonderful. And all of the students here have been so wonderful that I'm constantly awed. And, you know, we teachers are very snobbish. We think we stride into a building and we bestow pearls of knowledge on the students. They bestow pearls of knowledge on us. I want you to know that. And when I say the wrong date on a Bauhaus chair, they're the first ones to inform me, you got the wrong year. So it's not easy teaching people that are so smart, and they all have been and are and will continue to be so. Now the sad thing is, I don't like losing any of them. I don't want them to go away. I want them to stay right here, where I can keep track of them. I know that's not possible. Will some of you stay? Yes, certainly. Now the one thing I wanted to talk to you about for just a moment is taste. Helmet's a hard act to follow. He was going to do a little dance, but you didn't do it, Helmet. Can I do it instead now?
Well, I thought you'd sing and I'd dance, but
All
you double
right. At any moment, my voice might go. I have one of those colds that lingers on and on.
All right, I'll sing, you dance.
All right, good. Okay. But it is a matter of taste. And after Helmet's talk, I love what the things he was saying. And quite often, I've heard comments as to what is good taste. I know that it is not definable, and that each one of you has your own taste. And I may give you great dissertations on Mr. Chippendale, Hepplewhite, and Sheridan, and I hope that none of you try to recreate that, because as Helmut said, that is of the past, and you know I love the past. I force myself into the 20th century. But to see all of you take what I give you and then go your own ways is a wonderful thing. I've watched all of you, even though you listen to me for hours, create totally contemporary, wonderful things that I enjoy. Now, I may not want to sit on them, but at the same time, I look at them as things of great beauty, and you come so close to creating great pieces of sculpture so often that pleases me. And once again, that line that can't be drawn. What is a piece of furniture? What is a work of art? I'm afraid, well, I'm not afraid, I'm hoping that that is all breaking down, that these lines will all be crossed, and that all of you will consider what you do great works of art. And if you don't become famous cabinet makers, I know at least you will produce things of beauty. And one thing, Joel, you left out was, of course, conservation, another field that you all have the possibility of going into, because every museum today needs a fine furniture crafts person or artist to save what's left of the past, as well as creating things for the future. So that's another little facet you can explore. And now you've heard just about enough from everybody, and the refreshments are waiting. John, I'll let you take that.
Thank you, Edward. I have just a couple of concluding remarks, and in a way it also follows on what Edward said. The idea that commencements, graduations, whichever you'd like to term them, tend to be endings for some people. I've been to a lot of graduations, having been involved in higher education for a number of years, but I never liked them. I really didn't like that day because it was always a party. People were leaving to become friends, and I knew a lot of them I'd never see again, and I never liked that. So it wasn't a happy day for me as much as it was a happy day for all those who were graduating. But Genoa was different. I've said this since I've come here, and I really do believe it, that Genoa becomes a way of life. And Edward, to answer your question, all the graduates are staying here.
Good, wonderful.
And we find that to be true with this experience, that once you become involved with Genoa, whether it be from a faculty standpoint, a resident artist standpoint, or a student level, you stay. You become involved. And even if you go somewhere else in the world, you'll be coming back again and again. And I'm happy for that. I'm glad to be here at this commencement because it really is a commencement, as we talked about. It is the start of more. And to the graduates, I'd like to say my congratulations and my best wishes. And I'm glad I'm going to be seeing you around. We will be having refreshments. The other unique thing about Genoa is the fact that this is only one part of graduation. The other part is our show, which will open at 3 o'clock in our gallery in Skinny Atlas. Again, that's very much a part of Genoa and makes us a little different than everybody else. So enjoy your day, and we'll see you all over in Skinny Atlas. Thank you.